Yeah.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. And pleased to say in this video, I'm joined by James from the Babbling Blues, and also Tom, who's joined us on the Burnley preview and is joining us again. We're going to be talking about Alex Iwobi today. It's just going to be, a bit of a informal sort of thing. We wanted to really talk about, he put himself in the limelight a bit with his obviously his social media posts and then the game against Burnley. So I'm really interested to go and to sort of talk about him. James, I'll come to you first, if that's all right. Just before we start talking about, our opinions on him, is, cold hard stats this season: 25 appearances, 2 goals and 1 assist. Sorry, 1 goal and 2 assists. But what have you made of him just, from the naked eye, James, this season? Because he's definitely split an opinion a bit.
Yeah, I think in terms of his raw numbers like that, it obviously it's not been good enough in terms of this season and last. I didn't realise he only had 1 goal in the league last season and no assists, which definitely isn't good enough. I think his underlying numbers have always been fairly impressive. I think before he signed for Everton, they were kind of what was pushed out, and that kind of infused me towards the signing of him. I think his sort of expected goals and assists were quite good. His progressive passes and runs were quite impressive, and that's what I was hoping for when he came to Everton. But I was a bit worried that maybe they wouldn't be sort of appreciated straight away, and I think that's kind of been the case. I felt he had a decent first half against Burnley on the weekend, but because he didn't get a goal or an assist, maybe it was sort of overlooked a little bit. But yeah, the cold hard numbers, you say, definitely aren't good enough, I think, and they're what needs to improve. And I think that's what he needs to start doing if he wants to start in his sort of, his preferred position, as you touched on there. That's what he needs to start getting out. But I think he's put in a handful of good performances for us this season, but I would like to see more from him.
Yeah, I think I'd definitely like to see more from him. I think people's main problem with him is, and obviously footballers can't control their own transfer fees. That'd be a good thing if they could, but they can't. And he sort of disappoints. That's the thing with him. And I was a fan of him in the way that I thought he worked hard. He played in a few different positions, but his attitude walking off the Chelsea game annoyed me a little bit. And I do agree. I think he started the game well against Burnley, but I don't know if he really did enough. Tom, who's joining us today, mate, thank you for coming on and speaking to us. Your thread on Twitter, I really enjoyed reading through. I thought it was really good, and I liked how you dove into his game a bit more. So go check out the thread if you haven't already, guys, at tlogic1991 on Twitter. But yeah, you were very much under the impression that he was very underrated against Burnley, and that his game was a lot better than Evertonians led on. So yeah, just want you to elaborate on that a little bit more, because you've given us cold hard evidence to some of the good things he did do, but yeah, just want you to elaborate on that a bit for us.
Yeah, well, basically even before the game, I was on the preview and I basically said that Alex Iwobi's performance against Chelsea was one of the worst performances I've seen in terms of defensive positioning and things like that. He was terrible, but you've got to take sort of emotion out of it and then basically sort of judge him on each performance. And I think Carlo Ancelotti done a very shrewd and a very well thought out man management situation really, where he just put water over a fire in terms of coming out and basically saying, well, if he wants to play there, I'll play him there. And he duly did put him there. And I think in the first 30 minutes, he played well. I don't think anyone could really suggest that he didn't. It's more so like after 30 minutes, we're 2-0 down. I wouldn't necessarily blame that down to Alex Iwobi. It was down to the other three in that midfield. That structure that they sort of did was just totally non-existent. So after 30 minutes, Ancelotti sort of panicked and changed formations. So yeah, I think I don't necessarily know what the whole narrative was, because the whole narrative was that I seen was that he done nothing. But I've seen a lot of things that he did do well. So I think the sort of agenda that you just automatically say to, oh no, he's had a bad game because he hasn't scored or he hasn't had an assist. I think assists is a very debatable stat anyway, in terms of it. If you pass a ball through to Calvert-Lewin, it's down to him to put it in, and there's the assist. It's all down to creating chances and expected assists, really, in my opinion. So, listen, I thought he played well, and after that, he in the second half, he went. I weren't sort of backing that up because that's not his position. We all know it's not. We all know he's not good enough to play right midfield. But in terms of saying he done nothing, I don't agree.
Yeah, no, to be honest, I did think he started the game quite well. The first pass from Richarlison into Richarlison, that we probably should have scored from that chance. And yeah, I do think there is a narrative, mate, that and it's a particular thing with Evertonians, is that if a player has one bad game, they're finished. And it's the wrong narrative to have. It's the wrong sort of agenda, to have going into a fixture, that it's like, if this player doesn't do it in this game, then it's not, they're rubbish. And you hate to see it, because I think our fans are very good at hanging up players to dry and finishing players' careers off just by our own opinions. And I think Alex Iwobi on Saturday, he had one of those games where if we'd have won the game, it would have gone down as a good performance from him. But we didn't. We were 2-0 down after 30 minutes, and that. Yeah. Go on.
Well, yeah, not being at the two first posts, but in the first 10 minutes, he could have had a goal and assist.
Mm-hmm.
If Richarlison would have played him in. So the whole sort of that narrative just switches. It's because we got beaten. You're looking for, in my opinion, just an scapegoat or someone to try and blame. But what's one person, one player in an attacking midfield got to do with defensively? It didn't make sense. It didn't really make sense, because in terms of, if you genuinely looked at it, Alan had a poor game. Gomez was non-existent, in my opinion, and Davey was out of position. So it was sort of where you're saying, like, we're missing Decore. We spoke about him. We tried to sort of work out a sort of system that would sort of negate Decore's absence. But it just proves a point that Diamond's got overrun, and it just doesn't work without him.
Yeah, and I do think, being at the point of that Diamond, it's such an important part of the team, isn't it? And he's put him there, and I don't necessarily think that we shouldn't play him there again. I think it's just people that. It was obviously a horrible game on Saturday. It was one we're all keen to forget. It was an embarrassing one as well. So I think people look for someone to blame at a time like that, and it's probably not right. But I can understand where some people come from, in that he's just for the money we paid for him, he does a little bit less than what's needed, and I think that's where it falls for him.
Yeah, I mean, just on that, he was never bought to be a right midfielder, so I don't see why we should judge him on that. I think he got put into that position. I mean, we've paid 25 million for Ben Godfrey. Ben Godfrey goes for playing at left back, we'd be saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be very limited in that position. Alex Iwobi got bought to be an attacker midfielder in a Silva system. That's the way it was. And when you look at his stats for Arsenal on a left midfield and an attacker, they're very good. And in terms of even looking at his stats, when you compare to like Gylfi Sigurdsson, they're very good. It's just more so the goals and assists that he needs. But in terms of that, you can't really suggest that he wouldn't do more or less than him until he gets given that role for a long period of time.
So you want to see him in that role?
Oh yeah, 100%. I don't think one game should just necessarily just say that's it, done. I think it's a bit silly to suggest that just one game that you just all of a sudden just bomb him out the team. I mean, in the first few instances, he played the ball into he split the defence and carried the ball. and put Calvert-Lewin through. If Calvert-Lewin gets a better touch, it's a goal, isn't it? So it's just little things like that you're looking at and you're trying to pick holes. I don't know, people can say like I was crossing and things like that, but he's not that type of player, and you got to give credit where it's due, because ultimately he was a big part of that first goal. He was the one who progressed past the defensive line. Sigurdsson or James Rodriguez would never dream to do that. So he picks it up in the corner and plays a lovely pass into Davis, and Davis surely obliges with a good cross, doesn't he? So in terms of that, I think he does have a future at Everton. It's just how we're going to use him.
Yeah, I agree with that to an extent. I think I don't think he's someone. I wouldn't necessarily say, and it's a tough one to gauge, but I wouldn't say I regret us signing him, because I do think he's got a future at the club. It's just people bring his fee into it an awful lot, but I do think he's a useful player to have around, whether you put him in the midfield or, we've seen this season. He's willing to play in a lot of different positions, isn't he? And he just obviously had the sort of thing about playing in his preferred position. And now after that game on Saturday, Evertonians will be looking around everywhere for, someone to blame for it, which isn't necessarily right, when I think, 10 out of 11 players in that game had a bad game. Can't think of anyone that I think played particularly well. So, yeah, I think it's going to fall down to him playing a few more games in that position, and maybe getting a few more goals and a few more assists is what we hope, because, just as Tom's thread and Tom's proof shows, he didn't have zero impact. And as well, one of his best games he's played for Everton against Wolves at Molineux this season. He was in that position, wasn't he, with James Rodriguez just in front. James, would you say he's been a bad signing?
I think he's been a bad signing in terms of what we've sort of got back from him, because I don't think another club would come to Everton and say we'd take him off you for more money than you paid, or the same money that you paid, which is probably ultimately what Everton kind of need to look to, is signing younger players and then playing well for Everton and eventually moving them on. I think I've got a much better chance of getting value for money at sort of 28 million with, I think there's sort of 6 or 7 million add-ons to be looked into at some point than we would have done 55, 60, 70 million for Zaha, which was obviously the alternative at the time. I think it's the whole point as well, just signing younger players, and someone like Gylfi Sigurdsson, for example, who we signed when he was sort of 28, 29 years old. There's absolutely no way we're going to get probably anything back for him by the time we come to sell him. Whereas with Iwobi, I think he's only 24 now, so there's still plenty of time for him to progress at Everton. And I think that's just kind of what we've got to look towards, and that's why you can afford to sort of sign younger players. But as Tom said, in regards to talking about what he can't do and he's playing in a different position, I think I look at someone like Mason Holgate, for example. I'm not sitting here berating him because he can't cross a football because he's a centre-back. So, yeah. And I think we just kind of have to go with that sort of same approach with Alex Iwobi. If he's not playing his preferred position, we're not going to get anywhere near enough out of him. If we don't get enough out of him, then he obviously will go down as a poor sign. But I would absolutely stick with him in that position whilst James isn't there. I think he's our best option there. And I think the whole issue and the reason why we were talking so much about him on the weekend was because of what he did during the week with his post, and now he put a target on his back there. Ancelotti rather sort of heeded to his wishes, and then obviously we're 2-0 down, and I think that makes him a very easy target. I think that was the issue with the weekend, but I think it's probably too early to say whether he's been a poor sign or not, because I do think there's plenty of potential there for us to get something out of Iwobi. Yeah,
I think it has that post. I think he's made an unbelievably bad error of judgment there, because when you look at his game on, to be honest, Tom, I don't think you'd have to do the thread that you did if he hadn't put that post on.
I agree. I think people just set the stores out straight away. And
no, definitely, mate. Yeah,
Bullseye was on the back winning really.
Mm-hmm. He's but if he doesn't do that, if he goes in and has a quiet word with Carlo and says, "This is where I want to play. Can you please give me a chance here?" We're then looking at the game on Saturday night, Sunday morning, going, all right, we'll look at Alex Iwobi. He plays in this different position. He started the game quite well. He put the ball through to Davis to set up the Calvert-Lewin goal. He didn't play that bad, did he? He played pretty well. I'd like to see him there again, but you get, a lot of blues on Twitter and stuff like that who will just they'll have the chopping block out ready at half time, ready for 90 minutes when we've seen half of the player in the position that they want. I think my only real problem with Iwobi so far is crossing. I just think his crossing's awful. Tom, what would you make of that? Because, I've seen a couple in your thread that was like defender blocks his cross and stuff like that, or his cross isn't very good. But I think that's somewhere he definitely needs to improve. And I don't think that's down to anyone criticising him. I just don't think his crossing's the best.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of his crossing, I don't think he gets much help from the right wing back to do an overlap and run in terms of taking and creating space for him to get them over. But yeah, I agree. I mean, he certainly needs areas I'm not sitting here saying he's a world beater or anything like that, but I was defending what he done against Burnley. I mean, you literally can't just turn that. Sorry, yes, Burnley, and you just can't turn around and suggest that he done absolutely nothing in the game when I had to put the thread out and show you what he's doing. I mean, in terms of looking at the threads, you're looking at it thinking, yeah, his crossing needs improving. But yet again, he gets through out of position. So in terms of if that's the only thing that we're nitpicking in terms of crossing, then I think he fully deserves his chance to get put into an attacking midfield role, especially when he's not going to be out wide anyway if he's going to play there. I mean, in terms of his crossing, it's either one or the other for me. I mean, if he keeps playing balls in like he did to Calvert-Lewin every game, then I'm happy to take that over his crossing.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, but the right back is a big thing, isn't it? Because Mason Holgate isn't going to make those.
It's a huge, yeah.
And when Seamus Coleman
it's a huge issue.
He did do a bit more of that when Seamus Coleman come on, and that's why Carlo Ancelotti put him on, because that was his job was to overlap and try and get the ball into the box, because that's definitely the most overriding issue in the team now, in my opinion. But how bad's that for you, Tom? Having Mason Holgate at right back, and leaving Coleman out, because I've been in the camp of Coleman's. This is one of his last seasons. I don't think he's good enough to be first choice anymore. Where do you stand on that debate? Because I think that does have a big role in whether Alex Iwobi is an Everton player next season or the season after.
Yeah, I mean, the right back situation's a very, very debatable topic, and I don't think really anyone can debate it in terms of we need a first team right back to keep going. I mean, for the next 4 or 5 seasons, hopefully. I mean, people are looking at Max Aarons and things like that. That's fine, but it seems to be a bit of a theme going on with Everton every season, doesn't it? It seems to be in it. Like the other year, we're looking at centre midfielders. The year before, we're looking at centre halves. They're always going into a season where we're very lightweight in one area. I mean, in terms of sending John Joe Kenny out on loan, they had to in the end. I don't think John Joe Kenny really had a future at Everton. Coleman's probably the best right back in the club, and he's 32 years of age. So that just shows you really. And he's getting to the point now where he is picking these injuries up. And listen, he's got 1 year left on his contract, and hopefully he sees that out. But it's gonna be priority really, and I think Ancelotti's already made that aware really that isn't. We've seen reports, haven't we, even so far, even into February and March, that they're looking at getting a right back in.
Definitely need one. Same question for you, James. Do you think with a Max Aarons in the team, or some better right back anyway, does that make Alex Iwobi's position easier for him, or more important, basically? Does it have an impact on Iwobi's role in the team? Because we mentioned there, his crossing into the box isn't that great. But a lot of that does come down to he always seems to look to his right for an overlap and run from the right back and doesn't get it. So how much to you, James, does that matter, or do you think we're just making excuses there?
Well, I think even if he plays in the centre, I think a right back just helps, in terms of width, stretching teams out. Burnley were more than happy to try and contain Luca Dean and just let Mason Holgate have the ball because he can't cross a football, Mason Holgate. And again, in the same way, I wouldn't necessarily slag off Iwobi for not being able to cross it because he's not a right midfielder in my book anyway. In the same way, obviously, Mason Holgate's not a right back. I think that is a huge issue. And as I say, even if he plays in the centre, I think having a right back and another option would help that. But yeah, if he's going to play as a right side midfielder, then I think a right back would definitely help the team in general, not just Iwobi. But I was saying after the Chelsea game, I was saying the exact same thing about how we go into seasons with one massive issue. I remember when we had Cuco Martina playing left back a few seasons back, and
don't remind us.
It's like I can't believe we spent all that money and we went into the season with one left back, and it was a 31, 32-year-old Leighton Baines. Just absolute agony to think about, and we've done the same again with a right back, and it just feels like every season where 8-9 players in where I think, this looks quite good. Then we have one or two light areas in the first 11 and we just can't seem to plug the gap properly. And that's just what we really need to do in the summer.
Yeah, can I just on that point, I think in terms of looking at a right back, I think it's very important that we get a right midfielder. That's a massive priority. I don't think anyone in the club, I don't even think anyone at all in that team, you can put at right wing apart from Richarlison, but then you're pulling out one of your best players out of position, really, aren't you? So it's a hard situation to have. I mean, with Iwobi, I think his best position, the way he plays football and the way he likes to cut inside, it doesn't suit the right side. I mean, if he was on the left and he was cutting inside, he has a full range of options, really, especially listen, he's got very, very good vision, Alex Iwobi. And he's looking for that pass all the time, and I think he's got the ability to make it. So I think next season, if you're looking at in terms of if we do get a right winger in, I think you could maybe see Iwobi going left mid or playing in behind Calvert-Lewin.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily saying he's going to play every game.
No.
Just say he's a very good option.
That he is an option. I think that was my argument, Tom, is that he plays a few different positions. And I know the poll we put up on our Twitter earlier, which I'll read out to you now, is that the argument that John made is that he's a good option to have around that time when there's a lot of games coming on. And there's we need to change the team, or we need to look for a different option here and there to beat a team. I'll read out the poll. We're going to be talking obviously about Alex Iwobi. So we put this poll out on our Twitter a couple of hours ago, just to really gauge a fan opinion. What is the overall opinion on him? Is he as bad as what some people are making him out to be? If so, does Alex Iwobi have a future and role at the club? 35% of people said yes, 65% of people said no. To be honest, I don't see how you can say for a 24-year-old who's been playing out of position a lot, I don't see how you can say that's it, his Everton career is finished. He just, I think there's a lot of people still with a lot of adrenaline from the game on Saturday. And fairly enough, people get very wound up and people get people support this team with all their lives, and if something goes wrong, they don't like it. But I don't think he's finished by any means. I can't remember the post-match stream. I probably got annoyed at him, but we just lost 2-1 to Burnley, and I was annoyed. And looking back on it now, 3 days later, I can say, yeah, he's a good player to have around the place. And I remember him coming on against Liverpool. I remember him coming on against West Brom, and I was happy with him. I thought he came on. He helped us win those games. He was fast, and he looked to want to keep hold of the ball. I just think it's very wasteful to say this player doesn't have a future at the club. So Tom, I just want to know what in your opinion, what his future is.
Well, if you go back through the middle of the season, everyone was praising Alex Iwobi.
Yeah. When
he was playing right wing back. So it's a very fickle sport, football, isn't it? So
no, definitely.
So in saying it's what you've done lately, really. And listen, he's had one really, really poor game against Chelsea. He's come out and said an Instagram post, but listen, a lot of that's rubbed a lot of fans the wrong way. But just on that, you've got to bury that, because the manager did. The manager never made a big deal about it. So I don't think why fans should carry on against them. It got dealt with. It's done with. So in terms of that, yeah, I mean, of course he's got a future. If you look at his stats and compare to like Gylfi Sigurdsson, as progressive passings to Gylfi Sigurdsson's progressive passes is 2.57 per 90. Alex Iwobi's is 4.11. Progressive carries, Gylfi Sigurdsson got 1.87 per 90. Alex Iwobi carry 8.06 per 90.
And I'd make an argument that both of those players, in my opinion, do have a role at the club in some capacity.
But you're looking at his state, right? And you think you like James made a very good point in terms of age and profile. You got a 24-year-old, 25-year-old this season who's played totally out of position, and then you're looking at it thinking this club's about to give a 31-year-old attacking midfielder an extra contract. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. I mean, if you're going to go into next season, at least give Iwobi the chance to prove himself with James Rodriguez in front of them. With two of them, you're not going to miss Gylfi Sigurdsson, by far not.
I think with the amount that Carlo changes the team, and he does like to move about and try different formations and tactics, there's probably is a very good role for him there somewhere that we don't really know about yet. He played there against Wolves with Hammers in front of him, and he was really good. He scored a goal in that game, a really good goal as well. So I think it's just extremely reactive to the game on Saturday to say that he's got no future. I think he's definitely got a role at the club, and I see what you're saying about giving Sigurdsson the contract, but I think Iwobi should be getting more games. Yes, Carlo obviously does like him because he played him enough this season. I think both of them are good, rotation players. Iwobi definitely has the potential to be more than a rotation player, but when it comes to Sigurdsson, which we'll talk about in another video, I just think that we need to stop saying this player's not good enough, let's get rid of them. Because there's the whole, we've got lots of dead wood argument then. And it's like, I think, both players for me have got a future at the club in some capacity. I think it will be much more so than Sigurdsson. But no, I think if you give him another chance in that position when James is out, or instead of Sigurdsson, or when Sigurdsson's not there as well, do you think he can have an impact? And he's got a bit of pace, which is a bit of a thing, a good thing, because we've got too many players in the squad this season, especially in the midfield, that aren't fast enough.
I mean, if you're gonna give me a situation where you hold one of them, then I'll take Alex Iwobi over Gylfi Sigurdsson moving forward. Just in terms of wage wise, age profile, and things like that, you've got to go with the younger lad, because at the end of the day, Everton are in a situation where this team is going to push us into the top four. That's ultimately the goal, and the main goal is winning the league. So Everton have got to sort of create situations like Leicester have, where they're selling these lads on for like 80 odd million each season, because that's the only way you're going to start bridging this gap. You keep holding on to players who are just with no sell-on value, then there's a major issue there that they're going to suffocate the club in terms of FFP and things like this. So, yeah, it's going to be a big summer. It's going to be a big summer, and it's going to be very interesting where Ancelotti's brands go with this summer, because they sort of went for the experience in Alan, Decore and James last season. So I wonder what they're season.
Yeah, it'd definitely be interesting to see what happens in the summer. Something definitely needs to happen because the crop of players we've got now aren't going to get us. Might get us European football, but we're not going to go far in it if we keep the same crop of players. James, just before we finish, mate, your opinion on his future and where you think he should go from here?
Well, I think up until this point, Alex Iwobi's Everton career has gone exactly the way I thought it was going to when we signed him. I thought that those sort of progressive run stats and progressive pass stats and his expected contributions and all that, I thought that would go under the radar. I felt like he was on the back foot from the second we signed him because a lot of people didn't want him. A lot of people wanted Zaha, which I think for the right fee could have been a good move. But again, you're looking at age and profile. He was getting up towards his prime. He probably didn't have much long left at the top. And obviously he's hasn't been anywhere near as good as he was in that. I think it was the 18-19 season when he was very good for Palace. And I just feel like up until this point, Iwobi's been on the back foot. He was going to need to do a huge amount of contributing in terms of goals and assists for people to really recognise what he does for a team and what he is good at. And I just think because of how dysfunctional Everton have been over the last, near 2 years now in terms of changing the manager, then football stopped for ages and then we were back and then we were off again, then we were back and then we brought James in and formation changes, injuries, all that I just think is really, if I could pick one player I think it's hindered the most, it probably is Alex Iwobi. I absolutely think he's got a future at Everton. I think he can contribute to this team, but it's definitely not going to be it at right wing back. I think that's where the problems are going to lie for him if he's not played in the position where I think we can get the most out of him. As soon as he was brought in, I felt like he was a number 10 or someone who certainly could play between the lines, and he showed that against Burnley, but because we got beaten, because he had that target on his back, he wasn't able to show that. So absolutely, Alex Iwobi's got a future at Everton. And the good thing is that if Ancelotti decides he doesn't, we should be able to get, I'd say probably 75-80% of the money we paid for him because he is younger and because other teams can spot his potential. That's what's good about it. And that's why someone like Moise Kean, for example, who we signed, who's very young and he's obviously done quite well at Paris Saint-Germain, we should get a good sum of money for him if he moves on in the summer. And I think that should be the way we move forward now, learn from it. And I'd like to see Alex Iwobi stay and add a right back, some more younger players into the team around him and add a bit of consistency. And I think we'll really start to see something from him.
Yeah, and unless either of you got anything more to add, I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, no, I just think in terms of Everton this season, I think people have got to have some realisation in the fact that we're in a very transitional period with the club, and it's only Carlo Ancelotti's first season, and he's working wonders really. I mean, you can pick holes in the whole season, but then it's a football season that it's not going to go perfect, is it? So you've just got to have some sort of reality check. And listen, Everton are outperforming the stats and everything at this current moment in time. And the funny thing is, they've had a poor 2 games, but you're looking at other results, and they're still in the mix.
Definitely.
So there's still a chance. 10 games to go. Just show a bit more positivity in terms of towards players. You can't do nothing at this current moment. So when we get to the summer, we can see what they do then. Yeah,
I think, and I absolutely hate it, Tom. I've said it on our channel quite a few times, is that for football fans, everything's got to be now, or else there's no positivity at all. And we're still in, Carlo's first full season. If you'd have told me at the start of the season, you'd be sick going into the running. You get your first win at Anfield in 22 years. You're actually
finals.
Yeah, still in the cup. And, I had to bit your hand off for it.
We come 12th last year.
What, sorry?
We come 12th last year.
Exactly. So it's people are overreacting. And I think basically, if you want to know, we've been recording for about half an hour. If you want to know what we've said in this half an hour is, Alex Iwobi was an idiot to go out and put that Instagram post by painting a target on his back. He's gone out into a game where a lot of people are watching him. The whole team has underperformed. We've lost 2-1, and he's the natural scapegoat because of that target on his back. Does he have a future at Everton? In our opinion, yes. He's got a future if he gets a bit more game time there. But look, Carlo Ancelotti has not won the trophies he's won by accident. He's won them because he's dealt with players like this before. He's dealt with situations like this before, and I've got full faith in him. And anyone thinks that they can question Ancelotti and think that he's not the man for the job, in my opinion, you need to sort your head out, in my opinion, because he's I think if you look at what he's done, he's done way more good than bad. And I'd like to see you show me the bad. But I think we've covered everything. Tom, thanks for coming on again, mate. You were great in the Burnley preview, and it's really good to have you come on and clear it up and talk to us a bit more about Iwobi.
No problem, mate. I mean, majority of the time, people don't like to stand up and say something because they get absolute pelters, don't they, on Twitter and things like that. But you've got to say something. You can't always go with this narrative and feed into it. You've got to go against this sometimes.
Yeah, and James, of course, quite a bit of a regular on the channel. So go check out the Babbling Blues on all your good podcast providers. Definitely worth a listen. The Burnley episode's up now, James, if I remember correctly. So go and have a listen and go fill your boots with that. But thank you all for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. We've just hit 8,000 subscribers, which is an absolute amazing milestone. So thank you all for that. But thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.